If someone had told me that the worst moment of my life would become the reason the Mafia Boss noticed me, I would have laughed, or cried, or both. But that night at the restaurant, under two bright lights and the smell of overcooked garlic, I learned a horrifying truth. I was never meant to walk past him unnoticed, because the moment my boyfriend leaned close and whispered low and venomous, "You're dead when we get home," the Mafia Boss lifted his head from the next table and looked at me. Not at him. Me. Like he already knew he wasn't going to let my boyfriend finish that sentence. Before we continue the story, please drop a comment telling me where you're watching this from. And don't forget to subscribe to Mara's Betrayal. I wish I could say my life before that night was simple. It wasn't. I had already learned how to keep myself small, quiet, careful. I had learned the difference between a man raising his voice at a waiter and the kind of man who lowered his voice when he was truly angry. My boyfriend Lucas belonged to the second category. He was charming in public, charming with friends, charming with strangers. But with me, he sharpened every word to a fine point. And I kept telling myself it wasn't that bad, that I was strong enough to handle it, that leaving was harder than staying, that people like Lucas weren't predictable. They changed, they softened, they apologized. But that night, he didn't apologize. Dinner should have been harmless. A late reservation I didn't want. A crowded Italian place. Too many voices talking over one another. I had already decided to break up with him. I'd rehearsed what I would say, how I would say it, how I would pack my things before he came home. But then he made a comment. Something cutting. Something sharp. I said something back. Something small. He didn't like that. His fingers dug into my thigh beneath the tablecloth, not painful, but threatening. A warning disguised as affection. "Watch your tone," he murmured. I stiffened. He noticed. He always noticed. But for once, someone else noticed too. The man at the next table. I didn't know who he was then. I didn't know the name whispered like a sin in this city. I didn't know the weight he carried when he walked through a room. I only knew he didn't belong with the rest of us. His presence was wrong in a way that made the air feel thinner, like an expensive suit draped over a loaded weapon, like power that didn't need to announce itself. He sat alone. A half-empty glass of red wine in front of him, a plate untouched, a black watch on his wrist that might have cost more than my apartment. But the thing I couldn't look away from was the way he looked at me. Not with pity, not with interest, but with recognition. Like he had already decided something about me before I even understood I was being watched. I forced myself to look away. Lucas didn't. He followed my gaze, saw the man, and scoffed. "Let him stare," he muttered. "He won't do it for long." He had no idea. I wished I could say this was the moment I realized how dangerous Lucas was becoming. But truthfully, that realization had been growing roots for months. It simply bloomed then. When he leaned in, smile fixed in place, and whispered so quietly no one else should have heard it, "You're dead when we get home." The words hit me like a blow. Maybe he didn't mean them literally. Maybe it was just anger, or one of his control tactics, or the culmination of every red flag I had chosen to paint white. But the Mafia Boss at the next table heard it. I saw it in the way his fingers stilled on his wine glass, in the way his head turned slightly, as if he were listening to a private frequency no one else could hear. In the way he finally leaned back in his chair and stared at Lucas with a slow, cold calculation. Lucas didn't notice. He never noticed the wrong things. He only noticed me. "You're going to apologize?" Lucas whispered. "Right now." "For what?" I managed, my throat tight. "For embarrassing me." Embarrassing him. By speaking. By existing. I swallowed the fear rising inside me, but the man at the next table didn't swallow anything. His jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed. He lifted his wine glass, but didn't drink from it. Lucas followed my gaze again and huffed. "Ignore him," he snapped. "He thinks he's someone." The man smiled slightly at that. A small, lethal smile. Quietly amused. Lucas had no idea he was ridiculing a man who was used to silence when he entered a room. A man who had likely buried people more dangerous than Lucas with the same expression he wore now. I forced myself to look down at my plate, to breathe, to stay still. But something inside me, something I had buried under years of being small, rose to the surface. "You can't speak to me like that," I whispered. Lucas froze, then laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. It was sharp, ugly. "I'll speak to you however I want," he said. My vision blurred. And then a shadow fell across our table, a presence, a quiet shift in the atmosphere, like gravity adjusted itself around us. Lucas looked up, annoyed. "Can I help you?" The man from the next table stood before us. Up close, he was worse. Beautiful, yes. Devastating, even. A face carved with precision, all sharp lines and controlled expression. Dark hair, darker eyes, a tailored suit that fit too perfectly. But it was the aura around him that chilled me. Cold, measuring, silent. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. Lucas leaned back, suddenly uncomfortable. "What? Do you need something?" The man's gaze didn't even flick to him. It stayed locked on me, pinned me in place, like he had seen too much. He said one thing. One quiet, deliberate sentence that cleaved the night in two. "Do you want to leave with him?" Lucas blinked. What the hell? But the man wasn't speaking to him. He was speaking to me. His eyes didn't move, didn't blink, didn't soften. He asked again, quieter. "Do you want to leave this restaurant with him?" My breath trembled. Lucas gaped, outrage overtaking confusion. "Back off! She's with me." The man finally looked at him. I don't know how to describe that look. It wasn't angry. It wasn't amused. It wasn't threatening. It was dismissive. As if Lucas were a chair blocking his way, or a fly that had landed too close. "Move," the man said. Lucas scoffed and tried to stand. "You don't get to." The man didn't touch him. He didn't move. He just said, "You're going to sit down." And Lucas sat. His legs bent without his permission. He fell back into the chair, stunned, confused, humiliated. What the hell?" Lucas sputtered. "Who do you think you are?" The man straightened, voice low, controlled. "Someone who doesn't repeat himself." Lucas looked like he wanted to argue, but the words caught in his throat. The man turned back to me, and for the first time something flickered in his eyes. Not sympathy, not pity. Something colder. Possession. "Stand up," he told me. My fingers trembled on the edge of the table. Lucas reached for my wrist, but stopped when the man's gaze sliced toward him again. Just a fraction of a glance. A warning. I stood. Slowly. My chair scraped the floor. The entire restaurant felt like it inhaled and waited. The man stepped back, giving me space. But when I moved toward him, his hand brushed the small of my back. Barely a touch, barely pressure, but enough to guide me, to claim the action. "Where are you taking her?" Lucas shouted. The man didn't bother turning. "If you raise your voice again," he said, "you'll regret it." Lucas froze. I felt myself shaking. The man walked with me toward the exit, calm and unhurried, as though escorting a woman out of a burning building. The maitre d' tried to greet him. He ignored them. Outside, the city lights reflected off wet pavement. The air was cold enough to carve up the lungs. He turned to me then, alone for the first time. His eyes were darker outside, more dangerous, more certain. "What's your name?" he asked. My throat trembled. "Mara." He nodded once. "Mara?" he repeated, tasting it like he was testing its weight. "Good." His jaw flexed slightly. "You're not going home with him." "I wasn't planning to," I whispered. "Good." He stepped closer. Too close. Close enough that I felt the heat radiating off his body in the chill air. "You shouldn't go anywhere alone tonight." I swallowed. "Why?" "Because he won't let this go." Lucas. No, this stranger meant something else. Something bigger. "Who are you?" I whispered. A faint, cold smile touched his lips. "The wrong man for your boyfriend to offend." The restaurant doors burst open. Lucas stormed out. "Mara, get away from him!" The stranger stepped subtly in front of me, shielding me with his body, eyes sharpening into something lethal. Lucas pointed at him. "You! Stay away from us!" "Lucas," I whispered, "don't." "I'm not scared of him." The man finally spoke, voice soft enough to chill bone. "You should be." Lucas paled. The stranger angled his head, studying him with bored violence. Then he looked at me again. "Go stand by the car," he said. "Black sedan across the street." My breath hitched. Do it, Mara." His tone changed, from command to promise. Lucas reached for me. The stranger's voice sliced through the cold night. "Touch her, and I end you." Lucas froze, arms suspended mid-air. I backed away, heart in my throat, mind screaming to run, feet carrying me toward the black sedan. I heard footsteps behind me, one set slow, controlled, one stumbling. I reached the car. The stranger appeared beside me a second later. He opened the door. "For the record," he murmured, "he's lucky I don't kill men for sport." "Who are you?" I whispered again. He looked at me as if he were tired of being asked, as if his name should have been obvious, as if it meant something in this city, as if I already belonged to the answer. "Domenico Falcaro," he said quietly, "but people call me Nico." The name hit me like a violent truth. Domenico Falcaro, the Mafia boss, cold, ruthless, untouchable, and he had just taken me from my boyfriend like he was collecting a debt. "You don't have to get in the car," he said. "You can walk away." I swallowed. "And if I do?" He held my eyes, steady, dark, certain. "Your boyfriend will try to hurt you again," he said. "And next time I won't be at this table beside you." My breath caught. A wind passed between us. A choice, a crossroads, a moment I could never undo. I looked back. Lucas stood frozen under the restaurant lights, staring at us with a mix of fear and fury that made my stomach turn. I looked forward. At the man who wasn't afraid of Lucas. Of anything. I stepped into the car. Nico closed the door behind me, and my life split into before and after. The car door shut with a soft, final click, quiet enough to be polite, loud enough to feel like a verdict. Inside, the black sedan smelled faintly of leather and expensive cologne. The seats were cold, the windows tinted so dark the world outside disappeared. But the seat beside me wasn't empty. Nico slid in one moment later, closing his door with the same calm finality. Not rushed, not aggressive, just certain. a certainty that wrapped around me like a collar. He didn't look at me right away. He took a moment, adjusting his cuffs, resting one hand on his knee, eyes fixed forward as the car pulled away from the curb, as if giving me time to breathe, or time to panic. I wasn't sure which. I stared at him in the dim interior light. His profile was carved from cold resolve and something darker, something old. Shadows moved across his cheek and jaw as streetlights trailed over us. He knew I was watching. He didn't acknowledge it. Not until the driver merged onto the empty main road. Only then did Nico tilt his head slightly toward me. "You're quiet." The words shouldn't have mattered. They shouldn't have made my pulse stutter. But they did. "Shouldn't I be?" I whispered. "That depends." His voice stayed calm. "Are you quiet because you're thinking, or because you're afraid? Does it matter?" "Yes," he said. He didn't elaborate. He didn't have to. I swallowed. "I'm thinking." "What about?" "Everything. Nothing." The way my life had changed in 10 minutes. The look in Lucas's eyes. The look in Nico's. But I answered the safest way I could. "I'm thinking about what happens next." He nodded once. "Good." He didn't say more. Silence stretched in the car, thick and heavy and charged. The city blurred outside the windows. My thoughts blurred inside my skull. Finally, I whispered, "Was I supposed to thank you?" "No." The single syllable landed with a quiet weight. "I didn't do it for gratitude," Nico added. "Then why?" He turned his head then, slowly, deliberately, until his eyes met mine in the dark. "Because your boyfriend made a mistake," he said softly. "He threatened you where I could hear him." My breath caught. There it was again. That certainty. That inevitability. Like the moment Lucas spoke, a fuse was lit. "And what does that mean for me?" I asked, voice barely steady. Nico considered me for a moment. "It means you're not going back to him. You kidnapped me." "If I had kidnapped you," he murmured, "you wouldn't be asking questions." My pulse stuttered. "Then what is this?" "A correction." I hated how those two words made something hot bloom in my chest. Anger or fear or both. "I didn't ask for a correction," I said, "but you needed one." "I can handle myself," I snapped. His expression didn't change, but something in the air did. Something. Subtle and cold. "Women who can handle themselves don't flinch the way you did," he said. I froze. I didn't flinch. "You did." He didn't say it cruelly. He said it like a man stating a fact. A man who didn't lie, not because he was honest, but because lies wasted time. "You flinched," he repeated quietly, "because you've heard that tone before. Many times." I swallowed hard. "You don't know anything about me." "You're right." He leaned back slightly. "Not yet." That shiver down my spine wasn't from fear. It should have been. But it wasn't. He watched me for a long moment, studying, measuring, reading things I couldn't hide fast enough. Then he shifted his attention forward again. "We're taking a detour." My fingers tightened on my seatbelt. "Where?" "To get your things." I stiffened. "No." "Yes." "You can't go to my apartment." He turned his head again. "Why not?" "Because I'm not leaving with you," I said. This is temporary." Nico blinked once, slowly. "Mara," he said, "I didn't ask you to leave with me." My chest loosened a fraction, until he added, "I told you you're not going back to him." "I can find somewhere else." "Not tonight." I exhaled shakily. "You don't get to decide that." He didn't respond, because he didn't need to. The car glided through the city like a shadow, silent, confident, cutting through the streets with purpose. Finally, he said, "You think I'm doing this to save you?" I stiffened. "Yes." "No." Maybe. I don't know what you're doing, I muttered. He nodded once. Good. Keep it that way. The road curved, the streetlights blurred, and Nico added almost to himself, because saving you isn't my motive. I turned to him sharply. Then what is? His eyes flicked toward mine, and for the first time, something cold and sharp and dangerous slid beneath his expression. Your boyfriend showed me something, he said, and I don't ignore things like that. What did he show you? I whispered. Nico leaned forward slightly, voice low. That you belong in a different world than the one you settled for. I don't belong in your world. That, he murmured, remains to be seen. I swallowed. He wasn't threatening me, but he wasn't reassuring me either. It was something in between, something worse, something binding. We drove in silence for a moment, the engine humming beneath us. Finally, I forced myself to ask, what exactly are you going to do to him? Lucas. I shouldn't have said his name aloud. Nico didn't blink. What do you think I'll do? I felt my stomach clench. I don't know. You do. I dragged a shaky breath. You're going to hurt him. Only if he gives me a reason. He already did, I whispered. Nico's voice dropped to something slow and lethal. Yes. The car turned onto a quieter street, dim, almost empty. I recognized it. My neighborhood. Panic flared in my chest. Stop! Don't go here, please! Nico didn't tell the driver to stop. He didn't tell him to continue. He just turned his head toward me with that quiet, devastating focus. Your things, he said again. Clothes. Essentials. I can come back for them later. No, he said. You can't. My throat tightened. Is Lucas waiting for me? Not yet. The way he said yet made nausea twist in my stomach. You can't confront him, I whispered. You don't even know him. I know exactly the type of man he is. No, you just overheard. Nico cut me off. I heard enough. The car slowed, stopped. Right outside my apartment building, my hands curled into fists. The driver lowered the window, scanning the street. Clear. Nico unbuckled his seatbelt and opened the door. Come, he said. I didn't move. Mara. My knees trembled. I don't want to see him, I whispered. You won't. He walked around the car to my side, opened my door himself, and looked down at me with eyes that didn't negotiate. Get your things, he said, while the street is still empty. I stepped out slowly, the cold night air hitting me like a slap. The building rose above me, old, decomposing brick, a flickering light by the entrance, the familiar scent of damp stairwells and peeling paint. My hands shook as I reached into my pocket for my keys. Nico stayed close enough that I felt the heat of his presence, not touching, watching, protecting, or cornering. It was hard to tell. The hallway inside the building was dim, the light humming. Shadows clung to corners the way they always did. I reached my door. My fingers froze on the lock. Nico stepped beside me. Open it, he said quietly. I did, slowly, silently. I pushed the door open and froze. My stomach collapsed, because inside my apartment, everything was wrong. Drawers pulled open, couch cushions slashed, books scattered across the floor, clothes thrown everywhere, pictures smashed, glass glittered like frost on the hardwood. Nico reacted faster than I did. He stepped in front of me instantly, blocking my view, blocking the world, blocking everything. Mara, he said low and hard, get behind me. My knees buckled. I stumbled back. He stepped forward, hand going inside his jacket. Not for show, for a weapon. He scanned the apartment with a coldness that froze my lungs. Then he murmured something I will never forget. He was here. My breath fractured. Lucas? Nico's jaw tightened. No, he said. Someone worse. A cold shiver ripped through me. Worse than Lucas? I whispered. Nico turned slightly, eyes razor-sharp in the dim light. Mara? He said. Someone came. Here looking for you. My pulse hammered. Looking for what? I whispered. His expression hardened, then quiet and brutal. You tell me. The apartment suddenly felt too small to breathe in, too cold, too violated. Then Nico stepped fully inside, pulling me behind the door, shielding me without thinking. He wasn't angry. He wasn't surprised. He was calculating. Who knew you'd be at that restaurant tonight? He asked. Just Lucas. And before him? No one. He looked at me then, really looked, and said the sentence that sent the first real jolt of fear down my spine. Someone else knew, Mara. My throat closed. No one. You're lying to yourself, he said. I'm not. His voice dropped lower. Then tell me something. What? He reached down, picked up a piece of torn fabric from the floor, and held it up to me. It wasn't mine. It wasn't Lucas's. It was black, heavy, expensive, and monogrammed with a single letter. A letter that meant nothing to me, but clearly meant something to him. Nico stared at it, then at me. His next words were quiet, deadly. Someone was here, he said. And they left this behind, as a message to me. My breath froze. To you? I whispered. But why? Nico stepped forward, his eyes locked onto mine with a chilling certainty. Because this isn't about your boyfriend, he said. This is about you. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I grabbed the doorway to steady myself. I don't understand. You will. He stepped closer, too close, his voice dropping to a dark, controlled whisper. Mara? I swallowed hard. Yes? He lifted the monogrammed cloth between us and said, Whoever came here already knew your name. My chest caved, my vision blurred. Someone else. Someone worse than Lucas. Someone who wanted something from me. Something I didn't understand. Something I wasn't ready to remember. And Nico, the Mafia boss who had overheard one threat, was now looking at me like I had just become a piece in a game he'd been forced to join. A knock suddenly echoed from the end of the hallway. 5 slow, deliberate taps. Nico's head snapped up. His expression turned lethal. Mara, he said quietly, get behind me. Now. If you're still watching the story till now, drop a comment so I know you're with me. Nico didn't raise his voice. He didn't move suddenly. He didn't reach for me like a panicked man. He simply straightened, and every molecule of air in my ruined apartment shifted, tightening, hardening, sharpening, as if gravity itself bowed to him. The knock came again. 5 slow taps. Same rhythm. Same unnerving patience. My lungs seized. Nico, I whispered. Behind me, he repeated, voice lower than before. I stepped back until the door pressed against my spine. My fingers curled around the handle, cold metal biting my palm. Nico moved only enough to shield me, his broad shoulders blocking half the room, his posture calm but lethal. It wasn't bravado. It wasn't a show. He looked like a man expecting war. Another knock, quieter this time, more deliberate. Nico didn't look away from the hallway. Did Lucas ever come here uninvited? He asked. I shook my head, swallowing hard. No, he didn't have a key. Did anyone else? No. Anyone who might think they're entitled to your attention? My throat tightened. No. He didn't believe me. Not because I was lying, but because he knew something I didn't. The hallway remained silent for 3 heartbeats. Then, a voice. Soft. Male. Dangerously calm. "Mara." My entire body locked. I didn't recognize the voice. I didn't know the tone. Yet something cold slid down my spine like fingers tracing a scar I didn't remember getting. Nico's posture changed. Very slightly. But enough. He recognized the voice. The man outside the door said my name again. Whispered it, stretched it, tasted it. "Mara, are you home?" My mouth went dry. Nico didn't turn, didn't blink, didn't breathe. He simply lifted his hand and flattened it in the air. A silent order for me not to move. Another knock. Not loud, not aggressive, almost polite. "Mara, Kirita," the man crooned. "Open the door." Nico stepped forward like a shadow sliding into position. When he spoke, his voice was a blade in velvet. "You have 10 seconds to walk away." The man outside laughed, low, amused. "Falcaro," he said. "You really shouldn't threaten people you can't afford to kill." Nico's entire body stilled. A pause stretched between them, quiet and electric. Then the voice said, "Tell the girl to come out." My pulse slammed against my ribs. No, no, no. I pressed myself harder against the wall, wishing I could melt into it. Nico moved 1 step closer to the hallway. "She's not going anywhere with you." The man chuckled. "You don't speak for her?" "I do tonight." "Ah, then tonight is a miracle, because Domenico Falcaro never protects anyone." Nico didn't answer. The silence after that statement felt like a wound being pressed open. The man outside shifted. I could hear it, the soft scrape of expensive shoes, the faint rustle of movement. Then, "Mara," he said, voice dropping lower. "Do you remember me?" Something inside me trembled. "I don't know you," I whispered. He heard it. He laughed again, too softly. "Oh, you do," he purred. "Somewhere in that frightened mind of yours. You do." Nico glanced at me then, just for a fraction of a second. But in that 1 second I understood something terrifying. This wasn't about Lucas. This wasn't about the restaurant. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone had been waiting for me. Someone who knew my name. Someone who didn't fear the Mafia Boss standing between us. "Mara," the man said, "open the door, or I'll let Nico choose what happens next." Nico's jaw clenched. His voice came out low. "You don't give me choices." "No," the man said lightly. "Then consider this a gift." He tapped the door, a single, soft tap. Nico reached inside his jacket, this time, unmistakably, for a weapon. "Mara," Nico said quietly, "close your eyes." "Why?" I whispered. He flicked a glance toward me. The truth in his eyes made my stomach drop. "Because I'm ending something tonight." I squeezed my eyes shut, and the hallway exploded. Not with a gunshot, with movement. Fast, violent, close. I heard the door swing open, a body slamming forward. A grunt. A struggle too quiet to be human. A sharp exhale, the sound of something heavy hitting the wall. Then, another sound. A whisper of breath near my ear. My eyes flew open. A man I'd never seen before stood inches from me. Tall, dark hair. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. He held a silver switchblade between 2 fingers, spinning it lazily as if bored. Nico was behind him, arm locked around his throat, weapon pressed into his ribs. And the man didn't look afraid. He looked entertained. "Hello, Mara," he whispered. Nico tightened the hold. "You came into her home." "I left a message for you," the man murmured. "You broke into her apartment." "I break into many places." "You touched her things." "I touched nothing of hers," the man said. "Only yours." Nico's weapon dug deeper into his side. "Try again." The man finally dropped the smile. That cloth wasn't mine, he said. It was left for you to find. By who? Nico hissed. The man's eyes flicked to me, and something cold slithered through my chest. Ask her. Nico shoved him back. The man didn't resist. He simply turned the knife and let it click shut, sliding it into his pocket with the ease of a magician hiding a card. Mara, he said softly, your memory is a maze, but the path leads back to me. I shook my head. I don't know you. You knew me before, he whispered. No, before the fear started. My breath caught. Nico stepped in front of me again, blocking the man from view. You have 5 seconds to leave, Nikos said. Or what? Or I forget restraint. The man's smile returned, slow and dangerous. Oh, Domenico, he murmured. You never had restraint where she was concerned. The temperature in the room dropped. He turned toward the hallway. You can try to protect her, he said over his shoulder, but you're already too late. Nico moved like he meant to follow him. The man raised a hand without turning. Don't, he said. Not tonight. And then he was gone, silent, effortless, as if he had melted into the hallway's shadows. Nico didn't move, not for a long time. I pressed a hand against the doorframe, breath trembling. Who was that? I whispered. Nico didn't answer. He kept staring at the empty hallway as if the shadows themselves were an enemy. My voice cracked. Nico, what does he want from me? Slowly, he turned, and for the first time since I met him, he looked uncertain, not afraid, not shaken, but facing a truth he hadn't expected. I don't know, he said. I wrapped my arms around myself. But he knows me. Nico nodded once. Yes. I don't know him. Another nod. I felt dizzy. How is that possible? He exhaled, sharp, controlled. Mara, he said quietly. Whatever is happening, it didn't start tonight. What do you mean? He stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough that his presence steadied the air. I think someone erased something from your life, he said. A memory, a person, maybe more. My heartbeat went wild. No, I whispered. That's Mara, he said gently but firmly. Look at your apartment. I did. Everything destroyed. Everything overturned. Everything violated. But not by Lucas. Not by Nico. By someone who knew what they were searching for. Mara, Nico said. They didn't break in to steal something. He held up the monogrammed cloth again. They broke in to send a message. My stomach twisted. To you? No. He stepped closer. To us. My breath shattered. Nico. He leaned in, voice low. You're not going back to this apartment. But you're coming with me. No. You don't have a choice. I stiffened. I do. He shook his head. No, Mara. You really don't. Nico. His voice dropped to a whisper that felt like a lock sliding shut. Because whoever that man is, his eyes darkened. He's not done with you. A knock came again. Lower, on the front door of the building this time. Nico went still. Is it him? I whispered. No. Lucas? No. Then who? Nico stepped in front of me again, this time without telling me to hide. Because he already knew what I would do. What I had to do. What I couldn't avoid. He looked over his shoulder at me, eyes sharp as a blade. Mara, he said, softly. Whatever happens next, don't run. I swallowed hard. Why? His answer carved through the silence. Because they'll follow. A hand tested the doorknob. A shadow moved under the entrance light. Nico lifted his weapon, and the door clicked open. Slowly, deliberately, as if whoever was on the other side knew exactly what waited for them. Someone stepped in. I recognized the silhouette instantly. Lucas. His face twisted with fury and confusion. "Mara," he snarled. "What the hell is going on?" And behind him, in the stairwell, a second silhouette. The man from my apartment, smiling. Lucas stumbled into the doorway, chest heaving, eyes wild, like he had sprinted here on pure rage. His gaze landed on me first, not on Nico, not on the destroyed apartment, not on the man standing in the stairwell behind him. Just me. "Mara," he snapped, "you need to come with me. Now." My pulse stuttered. Behind him, half-lit by the flickering hallway bulb, stood the stranger. The same man who had whispered my name in the dark. The man Nico had fought in silence. The man who smiled like he remembered things I didn't. He didn't greet Lucas. He didn't threaten. He just watched me, like he was studying an unfinished portrait. Lucas didn't see him. Not yet. He took a step forward, voice trembling with anger he thought he was hiding. "What did you tell him?" he barked. "What lies are you spreading now?" I flinched. Nico noticed. He stepped in front of me instantly, blocking Lucas. "You're done here," Nico said. Lucas blinked, confused. "Move. This is between me and her." "No," Nico murmured. "It isn't." Lucas scoffed. "You think you scare me?" Nico lifted his weapon slightly, not pointing it, not threatening, just reminding the room where the true power stood. "I don't think," Nico said. "I know." Lucas swallowed. I could practically see the realization dawn. That the man he had insulted at the restaurant wasn't just wealthy. He wasn't just dangerous. He was something else entirely. Someone Lucas had no business challenging. He opened his mouth, but the stranger behind him spoke first. "You brought him?" the man asked softly. "To her door?" Lucas stiffened. "Who the hell are you?" The stranger smiled, and for the first time since that night began, I saw fear flicker across Nico's face. It was tiny, barely noticeable, but it was there, which meant this man wasn't just anyone. He stepped forward into the doorway's dim light. Lucas gasped and stumbled back. "What? Who?" He couldn't finish. The man extended a hand, not toward me, not toward Nico, but toward Lucas. "Give me your phone," he said. Lucas shook his head frantically. "What? No. Why?" "Your phone," the man repeated. "You've been calling someone. Let me see who." Lucas took another step backward. "You're insane." The man took one step forward. Just one. But the energy in the hallway changed. The air thickened. The shadows trembled. "Your phone," he whispered again. Lucas panicked. He turned to run, but Nico moved first. He grabbed Lucas by the collar and slammed him against the wall. Not brutally, not violently, just with enough force to stop him from doing something stupid. Lucas froze. Nico leaned in close, voice low. "You're going to tell me," he said, "who sent you." "Sent me," Lucas sputtered. "No one sent me. I came because she wasn't answering." The stranger laughed, softly. It was the kind of laugh that didn't come from amusement. It came from knowledge. "Mara," he said, "tell them." I shook my head, trembling. "Tell them what?" "That he's lying." Lucas's eyes widened. "I'm not lying. I came because you stole her." "Stole?" Nico repeated slowly. "Is that what you think happened?" Lucas turned red. "She was with me. She belongs with—" "Finish that sentence," Nico said softly, "and I'll break every bone in your hand." The threat wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. Lucas shut his mouth immediately. Silence filled the ruined apartment. Then the stranger stepped closer. "Lucas," the man said gently, "if you didn't come here because someone told you to, why were you already in her neighborhood before the restaurant incident? Lucas froze. My heart dropped. What? I whispered. Lucas didn't speak. The stranger continued for him. You were parked outside her building for an hour. Watching, waiting, calling someone. Lucas turned pale. Nico's fingers tightened around his collar. You were stalking her? No, Lucas gasped. She was ignoring me. I wanted to make sure she wasn't. He cut himself off. But it was too late. Nico shoved him back against the wall. Not hard. Just enough to make the truth fall out of him like loose coins. You were following her, Nico said. Lucas didn't deny it. He just looked at me. Not with love. Not with regret. With entitlement. I told you, Lucas whispered. You're not supposed to ignore me. Cold crawled under my skin. The stranger sighed softly. He doesn't matter. Nico turned, anger simmering under the surface. He matters because he broke into her life. No, the stranger said, eyes glued to me. He matters because he doesn't realize she was broken long before he touched her. My breath caught. Nico's jaw clenched. Stop talking in riddles, Nico growled. Who the hell are you? The man's smile returned, slow and deliberate. Someone who knew her before you did? No, I whispered. I've never met you. He tilted his head. Haven't you? I shook my head harder. No. His voice dipped into something almost tender and unbearably sinister. Your mind is lying to you, Mara. Nico stepped between us. Don't come near her. But the stranger only laughed. You can protect her body, he said, but you can't protect her memory. Nico pulled Lucas forward, shoving him into the room. Sit. Lucas sat. He didn't dare do anything else. The stranger leaned against the doorway. Shall I tell him? He asked. Tell me what? I whispered, pulse pounding. He smiled. A truth you buried. No. A truth someone erased. No. A truth that links you to me. Nico cut in sharply. Enough. The stranger ignored him. He spoke to me. Only me. In another life, he murmured, you weren't afraid of me. Nico turned his head slowly, eyes narrowing. What are you implying? That she and I, the stranger said, started something long before she met either of you. Nico tensed. You're lying. Am I? His eyes found mine again, dark, piercing, knowing. Mara, he whispered, why do you think you fear shadows in narrow hallways? Why do you panic at the sound of footsteps behind you? My breath hitched. How do you... Because you weren't always running from Lucas. The apartment spun. Lucas, terrified. Nico, furious. The stranger, relentless. Stop, I whispered. Please. The man took a single step into the room. Mara, he said softly, tell me why you can't sleep with the lights off. My heart convulsed. Nico reacted instantly. He moved between us again, arm lifting as if he'd tear the stranger apart with his bare hands. You don't talk about her past, Nico hissed. Not unless she asks. She is asking, the man whispered, with her whole body. No, I breathed. The stranger leaned forward slightly. And do you know why she can't remember me? Nico's shoulders rose, higher, tighter. No, Nico said, and I don't care. You should. The silence that followed was suffocating, because then the man said, she can't remember me because someone blocked the memory. My knees nearly buckled. Blocked, as in taken, erased, removed. No, I whispered. That's not possible. Isn't it? He asked quietly. Nico turned his head slightly, not taking his eyes off the stranger. Mara, Nico said, stay behind me. The stranger's voice softened. I'm not your enemy. Nico's jaw flexed. You broke into her home. I was searching for a piece of her past. You terrified her. I triggered a memory. You touched her things. I touched yours. Nico stiffened. The stranger smiled wider. You hide things too, Domenico Falcaro. Nico lifted his weapon an inch. One more word, he warned, and I end this conversation permanently. The man sighed. As you wish. Then he met my eyes again. You and I, he whispered, are not finished. He turned to leave. Nico moved to stop him, but the man paused in the doorway. Oh, God, he wasn't done. Not yet. He glanced at Lucas, still shaking on the floor, and said, By the way, you may want to ask your boyfriend who he was calling tonight. Lucas shook his head rapidly. It wasn't. He wasn't calling the police, the man said softly. He looked at me again. He was calling the person who erased your memory. My entire world cracked. No, I breathed. No, he wouldn't. Wouldn't he? The stranger murmured. You don't know what Lucas does when you're not looking. Lucas trembled. Please, stop! The stranger tapped the doorframe. His smile returned, sharper, crueler. Mara, he whispered, I'll see you soon. And he disappeared into the stairwell. Silent, instant, gone. Nico didn't move for several seconds, not until the echoes faded. Then he turned to me, slowly, cautiously, as if approaching someone on the verge of collapse. Mara, he murmured, look at me. I did, and everything inside me broke. I need you, Nico said softly, to tell me the truth. What truth? I whispered. He stepped closer. Is it possible, he asked very quietly, that your boyfriend wasn't the first man to try to control you? My breath shook, my vision blurred, because suddenly, a memory snapped through my skull. A fragment, a voice, a hand grabbing my wrist in a dark hallway. Not Lucas, not the stranger. Someone else. Someone whose face I couldn't see. But the hand had a ring with a single engraved initial, the same letter on the cloth left in my apartment. I staggered. Nico caught my arm. Mara, he said urgently, what did you remember? My lips trembled. But before I could speak, Lucas suddenly lunged from the floor and grabbed my other wrist. Mara, he gasped, don't say anything. You don't understand. Nico pulled me toward him. Lucas yanked harder, and behind us, from the stairwell, a familiar, soft voice whispered, Let her remember. Lucas's grip tightened on my wrist like a drowning man clinging to the last piece of driftwood. Nico pulled me the other way, slow, controlled, inevitable. For a heartbeat, my body hung between them, suspended in a tug-of-war I'd never agreed to play. And from the stairwell, that voice again, soft, patient, hungry. Let her remember. The stranger stepped back into view, not rushed, not triumphant, not even tense. He moved like a man who already knew the outcome of the night, and everyone else was simply catching up. Nico released me, not because he wanted to, but because he needed both hands free. He stepped in front of me, positioning his body like a barrier between me and the stranger, between me and Lucas, between me and the world threatening to collapse. Lucas didn't understand what stood in front of him. He thought Nico was just a very dangerous man. He didn't realize Nico was also the only shield between himself and a force that didn't belong in normal human nightmares. The stranger leaned against the wall, hands in his pockets, head tilted slightly. Mara, he murmured, look at your boyfriend. I didn't want to, but I did. Lucas's face was pale. No, not pale. Drained. Vacuous. like all the false confidence and cheap cruelty had been scraped clean from him. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking at the stranger, terrified. Please, Lucas whispered. Don't come near me. The stranger smirked. Oh, but you called me, didn't you? Lucas's knees went weak. I jerked my wrist back from his grip instinctively, and he let go, collapsing to the floor with a choked sound. You called him? I whispered. Lucas squeezed his eyes shut. I didn't tell her, the stranger said. Or I will. Nico's jaw clenched. If you push him, he'll lie. Oh no, the stranger murmured. He won't. He stepped forward as lightly as if walking through fog. Lucas crawled backward until his spine hit the wall. Stop! Stop, please! Who did you call tonight? The stranger asked. Lucas shook his head violently. The stranger crouched in front of him, hands resting loosely on his knees. Lucas, he said softly, you remember what happens when you lie to me, don't you? Lucas whimpered. My stomach dropped. What did he do to you? I whispered. The stranger didn't look at me. Lucas did. His voice cracked. He made me forget. Nico stiffened. The stranger smiled, slow, unhurried, cruel. I didn't make him forget, he murmured. He begged me to. What did you erase? I whispered, heart pounding. What did he ask you to erase? Lucas buried his face in his hands. I didn't want to. He said he'd kill me if I didn't. The stranger pressed a finger against Lucas's chin and tilted his face up. Look at her, he ordered. Lucas obeyed, instantly. He wasn't shaking from fear of Nico. He was shaking from fear of the man kneeling in front of him. Tell her, the stranger said, what you asked me to erase. Lucas's voice was barely a breath. Her? No, I whispered. No, that's... Her memories, the stranger corrected gently. Not her existence. I felt the walls closing in. Nico turned his head slightly. What memory? The stranger didn't answer him. He answered me. The memory of me, he said. I staggered back. Nico grabbed my arm to steady me. You erased yourself, I whispered. From my mind? The stranger let Lucas's chin go and rose to his full height. No, Mara, he said. I erased what I was to you. My breath froze. What were you to me? He exhaled softly, not dramatically, almost sadly. Everything you fear now, he said, is because of what you and I were then. Nico moved between us. Stop talking to her. I can talk to whomever I please, the stranger said, and you know it. Nico's jaw tightened. If you touch her, touch. The stranger laughed softly. Nico, I already touched her. I'm not here for that. My heart twisted. What are you here for? I whispered. Closure, he said. For both of us. Nico scoffed. She doesn't want closure. Doesn't she? The stranger asked. He studied my face. Not with lust, not with violence, with a quiet certainty that made me want to crumble. You don't remember me, he said. That's not your fault. I shook my head. Who are you? He looked at me like I was a ghost. Someone you once trusted more than your own shadow. That hurt. It hurt for reasons I couldn't name. For a year, he said quietly. You were at my side. Every night. Every morning. Every danger. Every escape. My chest tightened. That isn't true, I whispered. It is. No, I would have remembered something like that. You did, he murmured, until you begged me to take it away. The room tilted. My legs buckled. Nico caught me again, steadying me with both hands on my arms. Tell me, Nico demanded, why would she ask you to erase anything? The stranger's eyes flicked to him. Because of you, they seemed to say, but his voice stayed smooth. Because she saw something she shouldn't have. I felt nausea climb my throat. What did I see? He smiled without warmth. My death. My breath shattered. And then he said the words that cracked the last part of me still standing. You saw me die, Mara. And I erased that memory so you could live. Silence detonated in the room. My hands trembled. My ribs ached. My lungs refused to work. You can't erase dying, I whispered. No, he said softly. But you can erase living afterward. Nico's eyes narrowed. Who are you? Really? He looked at Nico as if weighing an old weapon. Then back at me. Tell her my name, he said to Nico. Nico didn't speak. Tell her, the stranger repeated. Nico exhaled. Valerio. The name hit me like a scream behind my eyes. Valerio. My knees went weak. I don't know that name, I whispered. You did, Valerio murmured. You said it every night. You screamed it once. Nico pulled me into his side slightly, subtle, protective, grounding. Valerio smiled faintly at the gesture. You see how he stands with you? Valerio asked. That's why I came back. Nico's grip tightened on me. What do you want from her? He growled. Nothing, Valerio said. I want her to remember what she lost. I don't want to remember, I whispered. Valerio's expression softened, barely. You were brave once, he said. Braver than you think. My voice cracked. Why would I choose to forget you? Because you watched me bleed out in your arms. Something broke inside me. No. I don't remember that. Valerio stepped closer. Nico moved instantly, blocking him. But Valerio didn't stop. He looked over Nico's shoulder, straight into my eyes. You begged me not to die, he said softly. So I used the last thing I had left, my mind, and erased myself from yours. I felt tears spill, quiet, ugly, uncontrolled. And now? Nico demanded. Valerio's gaze hardened. Now someone is hunting her. My breath hitched. Who? Someone who knows she once belonged to me, Valerio said. Someone who killed me. Nico's entire posture changed, deadly, sharp, focused. He's back, Nico whispered. Valerio nodded once. He's coming for her. Why her? Nico growled. Because she was the last thing I loved, Valerio answered simply. And he wants to finish what he started. Love. The word stabbed me. I didn't love you, I whispered weakly. Valerio nodded. You didn't at first, but you did at the end. I shook my head, trembling. I don't want this. I don't want any of this. Valerio softened just slightly. I know. Nico stepped forward. You're not taking her, he said. Valerio tilted his head. I'm not here to take her. Then what? Valerio's face darkened. I'm here to warn her. Warn her of what? I whispered. He took a breath. Then he said the name like a curse. Cassian. The entire room went still. The air froze. Nico's face drained of color. No, he whispered. He's dead. Valerio shook his head slowly. You believe the wrong things. Nico stepped forward. Cassian can't be alive. He is, Valerio said. And he's coming. My heartbeat faltered. Why? Why would he care about me? Valerio looked directly into my eyes. Because he's coming to finish. The memory you tried to forget. Silence suffocated the apartment. Nico pulled me close, not gentle, but necessary. Mara, he said, you're not safe. Valerio nodded. She hasn't been safe for years. Why now? Nico demanded. Why appear tonight? Valerio's voice dropped to a whisper. Because Cassian found her. I felt my legs buckle. Nico held me tighter. Valerio stepped back into the shadows of the hallway. Mara, he whispered. You need to leave with Nico. No, I breathed. I can't. You must. Nico didn't argue. He lifted my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. Mara, he said, voice low and unshakable. You're coming with me. Valerio nodded from the doorway. He's the only one strong enough to keep you alive. My eyes burned. What about you? Valerio lowered his head. I'm already dead, he murmured. I can't protect you anymore. And then he looked up, and the softness vanished. Run, he whispered. My breath caught. What? Cassian is coming, Valerio said. He won't stop until he takes what he thinks you still owe. Owe, the word twisted my stomach. What do I owe him? I whispered. Valerio shook his head. That, he said, is the part you forgot. Behind us. A distant sound echoed in the stairwell. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Coming closer. Valerio's face hardened. No more time. He pointed at Nico. Take her. Now. Nico grabbed my hand. Lucas screamed from the floor. No! Mara, don't go with him! But Nico didn't even look back. He dragged me out of the destroyed apartment, down the hall, down the stairs. Valerio's voice echoing after us. Run, Mara, run before he finds you. We reached the back exit. Nico shoved the door open, pulling me into the cold night. I stumbled, breath tearing in my chest. Nico, who is Cassian? Nico didn't answer. He pulled me toward the car. Nico, I begged. Who is he? He finally stopped. He turned to me, and for the first time since I met him, I saw fear in his eyes. Mara, he said quietly, Cassian isn't just someone from your past. My breath hitched. Then who is he? Nico swallowed hard. He's the man who killed Valerio. My knees trembled. And now, Nico whispered, he's coming back for you. A shadow moved on the far end of the street. Tall, still, watching. Nico pushed me into the car, slammed the door, and shouted to the driver, Go! As the car sped away, I looked back and saw a figure step into the streetlight's glow. Sharp outline, cold posture, eyes fixed on the fleeing car. Cassian, my forgotten past, my unfinished nightmare. The man who had killed someone for me and had come back to finish what I owed. If you liked the story, drop a comment for part 2, and don't forget to subscribe to Mara's Betrayal.